I do believe that in many instances, the legal system is not fair to men. But there are some instances where I strongly feel that the legal system is not fair to women. And one such category where I see that is when it comes to stalking, women that are being stalked. Because I had a situation that happened with me pertaining to a stalker that I'm going to share for the first time now that we are years beyond it. But it was not fun when I was going through it. Just imagine in your home where you should feel the most safe, you have a man that keeps showing up. He's armed and he is saying that the two of you are communicating telepathically. This man is obviously very insane. And this has happened again over and over again to her sister, Kendall Jenner. I've read cases, her sister, Kylie. And we tend to sort of glean over these cases without giving it much thought. You go, oh, it's another stalker, it's a famous person, they deal with it. Like that's just the price of fame. And it's not just the price of fame. This is a mentally traumatizing situation to go through. People will see famous people online, and if they are in fact insane, they will convince themselves that there is some sort of relationship that they are having with them. Now, I said I wanted to talk about this because I went through something a couple of years ago that it still traumatizes me, but I'm finally ready to talk about it. I was scared to talk about it, which is a part of it, is that a lot of these women are under even more duress because the first thing that police officers tell you is not to say anything publicly about it because it could further set that individual off. And that's a scary place to be in. You're not supposed to talk about it. You're supposed to pretend it's not happening and hope that the police are going to do something. So for me, it started about 2 years ago, right before my son was born, while I was pregnant. I had a young man who went by two names. He was schizophrenic, who began sending me documents of his Psych 5150 hold, basically his discharge documents from the hospital. And he would write about 40 emails a day saying to me, you know, like I know, Candace, that I was in the hospital because you somehow convinced them that we weren't in a relationship. You know that we're in a relationship. You put me there. How could you possibly do this to me? You know what we have. Just truly believed that he and I had some sort of relationship and that he was in the hospital because I was lying to his doctors about the relationship that we had. So that obviously instantly flagged me. I'm dealing with an actual crazy person. The emails became more and more aggressive. I gave birth to my child. He basically wrote to me and said, I forgive you for, accidentally becoming pregnant with another man, and that we're going to raise this child together and everything's going to be fine. And his personality would oscillate from extremely angry at me to extremely loving and telling me that he forgave me. And he had convinced himself that every single thing that I wrote publicly and said publicly was directed to him. So I'll give you an example. I could tweet something like, only women can give birth, pertaining clearly to a transgendered agenda. And he would come back and write an email and say, I saw you wrote this. Yes, we're going to be happy and have children. I could tweet something, Trump 2024, and he would somehow see, as if it was like a code between me and him, he would somehow think that it signaled something to him that I had to communicate via code. And it was increasingly bizarre, increasingly scary. And things really culminated when this was right when I moved to Tennessee. He began sending me emails. Again, he had two names. He had his real name and then a pseudonym. And he sent me emails of a link to Eminem's song, which you guys remember, Stan. He did that song with Dido. And the song is about a crazed fan who convinces himself that he is receiving hate because he never gets an answer from this person he's obsessed with. And then he ends up killing his wife and his child. And he sent me a link to that. And he said, this is going to be our ending. That was terrifying. Again, we had the cops involved, but the cops kept saying to me, well, there's nothing that we can do until he does something. Think about that. There's nothing that we can do until he actually physically hurts you. So him sending you this song and threatening to hurt you doesn't mean anything. Things culminated when, after moving to Tennessee, he sent me a photo of him with a gun on his lap and said that he was coming to me. And it turned out that he had escaped his mental facility, which was holding him. Now, my understanding of the laws surrounding these mental facilities, I believe it's state by state, but where he was, essentially they can only hold you for so long. And this is because years ago, there was a very liberal fight to end insane asylums. Now, was there some rightful reason for that? Yes, of course. People were being abused in insane asylums. We know that they were testing drugs on people that were clinically insane, that our government was using them and experimenting on them, which is horrible and horrific. A lot of women that were in insane asylums were sometimes sexually abused. So they put an end to insane asylums. But then what happened is that people that are actually insane now are able to roam the streets freely. So there are all these laws governing this person can only be held maybe for 30 days, for 60 days, and then you have to release them because these are the rights for mentally insane people. Well, there are victims at the end of those rights for mentally insane people. Some people are actually clinically insane and should not be allowed to simply roam free in society and send pictures of guns on their lap and say that I'm coming for you. So once he left the mental facility, obviously, thankfully, we were alerted immediately. It made the press that he escaped, and it was a very compassionate post in the press, which was just, we're looking for this person. He may need mental help. If anybody sees him. And every single day where they did not find him, I was living in a mental prison. I am not a fearful person. I get death threats every day online. I think most of those people are absolute chumps, who just don't have the courage, would never have the courage to say things face to face to me. But when somebody believes that they are in a relationship with you, similar to what Kim Kardashian is going through, what Kobe Bryant's daughter, Natalia Bryant, is going through, it is another level. They are not living in the realm of reality, right? And so he is trying to find me. They don't know where he is. Every minute, I didn't want to leave my house. I had an event, I remember, at Turning Point USA. We were on high alert. I didn't want to do a meet and greet. I didn't want to see anybody because I was so fearful that what was going to happen to me would be similar to what happened to that former American Idol star. I believe her name was Christina Grimmie. Maybe it's Christina Grimmie. And she was at a meet and greet, and a stalker fan who was sending her weird tweets shot her and killed her, and she died in her brother's arms. And I just kept replaying that scenario in my head and was so paranoid and believing that I was going to die because they didn't know where he was and he was just going to shoot me in public. And so that is when I got security in place. We were on high security alert, but there's no way that I can communicate to you how traumatic that is to go through, not only as a mother, but as an individual, as a woman, just really believing you don't know where this insane person is. He has sent you threats telling you he's going to kill you, and the cops are telling you that they can't arrest him and they can't do anything because he hasn't actually killed you yet, right? It's just a threat. It's just an email. There's nothing we can do. And they're frustrated. I'm not trying to say cops are wrong here because they are just doing what they're legally allowed to do. They're saying they are not legally allowed to arrest him for sending a picture of a gun on his lap and saying that he's headed towards me, right? And fortunately for me, what ended up happening was they had guessed that he wouldn't be able to get too far because his mother and father were in communication, not with him, but with the police, and said that he has no money. He has no money. How far can he really get? And I'm thinking, he can get on a bus, you can get pretty far, you can bum cash and get over to Tennessee. And what ended up happening was that he went to a blood bank to donate blood in exchange for cash. And because they had him in the system, he was captured there. The police showed up and they took him back to wherever he was living in a mental home of some description. Who knows how long they can hold him there, but they at least know that he is stalking somebody and that I will be the first one alerted if he ever leaves. Again, makes me feel a little okay now that some time has passed, but it's a scary thing to go through as a person, a public figure, because there are people that are actually insane, and it is why I am not in support of the idea that there should not be insane asylums. I do believe that a lot of women would be alive today if our legal system was better and if there were a place for people that are displaying very clear signs of clinical insanity, that they're not living in the same realm as us. Most of these individuals now just end up on the streets. These are the kind of individuals that randomly throw a woman into the subway station, right? Throw her in front of the train tracks and she dies. Like as what's been happening a lot in New York City, there have been a lot of these random crimes from homeless people, because if they weren't homeless, these people would probably be in insane asylums. So I did want to shift to also talking about a lot of issues that I see in the legal system as it pertains to women, and launch a rare defense for Kim Kardashian and her sisters, and just make you guys aware that stuff like that happens.